Gary. I'm Scott Midzemeyer from Recreational Motorsports, and we're going to show you the video on your new dyno that you just bought from us. We're going to pan down here to the side. This first part is going to be about assembly. When you get this dyno from us, this cover will be on. We just took it off with the bolts that go along here. There's 7/16 bolts. I'm going to move it out of the way. Your console will be off of the unit, and down here I'll have Caleb zoom in. You see a red fitting here. It will be plugged and this hose will be loose. The counter wires are labeled and they will also be loose, so you're just going to need to plug them in. And then up here you're also going to see another line, and we've marked them clearly with red. This will be out. When you get ready to, you'll just shove it in hard and it'll lock itself in. And that'll be all the things that you really have to hook up. There will be a bolt underneath the cover right here, and a bolt down here that will be removed, and the whole console assembly here will be packed on top. So really that's all you're going to have to assemble when you get the dyno, besides some minor things which are pretty self-explanatory. So we're going to stop the video here and move on to a different section. Okay, this next segment on the instructions is going to be how to strap the quad down and prep it for putting it on the dyno. You'll notice that our drums are aluminum and they're V-shaped. The reason we do that is so knobby tires grip better. But the one key thing that you have to do is take yourself some carb cleaner and make sure you wipe the drums down clean and all the lugs off of the tires so there's no dirt or debris on them. That gets better adhesion to the drum. On the back here we have an eyelet, and you'll take the ratchet strap that comes with the dyno and you'll strap it over a bumper safely, and you're going to pull down to this eyelet, and you're going to pull about half the suspension travel down to put pressure on the tires. Just make sure that the excess of your tie strap, we usually rubber band it down and stick it down below somewhere so it can't get tied up in the chain. Now we're going to move around front and I'll show you how to tie up. On the front of the quad, what we have is we have a rack here for you, and these are adjustable. You can move them anywhere you'd like. But what we do is we take the same style ratchet straps, we hook to the back of the quad frame, come through the front and ratchet it tight, and then we take and hook to the front of the frame and go to the back and ratchet it tight. Caleb will zoom in on here, and we crisscross. So what that does is it doesn't let the quad go forward or backward at all. Same thing up front here. Make sure the straps are dangling down in front so they're not tied up in a wheel or can get caught in an axle. After you've tied it down, just make sure your alignment seems to be straight on the drum and you're set to go. Okay, now we're going to talk about the setup of the console and what the knobs and buttons do. We've got the cords plugged in, and you see that the two digital counters, they'll automatically come on. If we go down below here, you've got your thermal printer. There is a button on the side. You turn it on, it'll power itself up. If we go back up here to the console, on the left-hand side of the eliminator, there is a button. You'll see it scroll down and the lights will go through their staging and it will power up unit. The back screen will light up. When you see all four lights, that means that everything's ready to go. Over here we have the load knob, which the further in you turn it or to the right, the more load goes on the gauge. The further to the left you turn it or out, the less load's on the gauge. One of the things you asked me, Gary, was how do you know what load to use? You saw the 50cc quad that we had setting on the dyno. Yesterday we went out on a flat strip and we radar run this quad, and we did it in 150 feet like we have the counters programmed for. This quad went approximately 30 miles an hour. So we've established our mark that 30 miles an hour is what we're trying to achieve on the dyno. As soon as we get done with this segment, we'll run the quad and I'll explain to you how we achieve that 30 mile an hour. Here we have our regular buttons on the box. The only ones that you're going to really have to be concerned about are the enter and the reset. Down here we have reset buttons on our counters. These here tell us our counts. Each counter has 2 counts on it. You won't have to worry about changing anything. It just tells you. As you can see there, that's a preset number. That's also a preset number. The same thing happens over here. The first count on these counters is what we call rollout. That is the distance it takes for the drum to turn before the timer starts. we put about 8 inches of rollout. That way if you're sitting on the quad and are antsy on the throttle and you accidentally bump the drum and the wheels start turning, it won't set the timers off prematurely. The second count on this counter is basically 20 feet distance. On our second counter, the first count is 140 feet and the second count is 150 feet. That's the total length of the track that we're going to test on. That's pretty much the norm for any quads or small dirt bikes. It's basically references from the starting gate to the first corner. Now I'm going to shut the thing off here and we're going to get set up to make a run. It's going to be rather noisy, so I'll do no talking during that time. As soon as the run's over, I'll explain into detail what went on. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to start the quad up. What we're going to do is show you how to establish the load. I want you to watch this pressure gauge. The quad now, but just watch the gauge and watch where I point my finger, because that's what you'll be doing. Okay, we've just run this quad. Now what we're trying to find is we're trying to find if we were at our 30-mile-an-hour mark to know that we had the proper pressure. What came up here is our reaction time, our 20-foot time, our 140-foot time, and our final time. If we push delay box, it tells me that we were going 32.6 mile an hour, which is faster than what we were doing on the ground. So what we need to do is apply more load. So now I'm going to show you how to apply more load, and by doing that we run the quad wheels and we start to turn the gauge until we see our number. So you can watch what I'm going to do now. Okay, what I did is had the quad about half throttle. I turned the load valve until I saw my poundage, and now I know where I'm set. So we'll make another run and we'll see how close we got to 30 mile an hour. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the reset button down here, and you'll see the numbers will go back to 0. I'm going to hit the reset here, and I'm going to set the reset up here. As long as all 4 lights are on, we're ready to go. So I'm going to start the quad again and make another run, so bear with me here. Okay, same thing as before. We have our reaction time, our 20 foot, 140, and 150 foot. When we hit our delay box, we're at 31.7. So what we're going to need to do is add a little more pressure to the gauge to get it set to 30 mile an hour. So we're going to go through the procedure again. We're going to go half throttle, roughly, and start to load our valve down. Okay, we've got approximately 29.3 mile an hour. That puts us at about the 1,750 pound load. When you get this quad, we are not going to, or dyno, excuse me, we're not going to mess with this knob, so your load should be pretty much established. we could give or take here a few tenths and be still adequate as far as our load goes. You notice that every time I went to rerun, I pushed reset, reset, and reset, and I am ready for the next event or the next run. I'm going to show you now, we're going to get the time slip printer out, and I'm going to show you what the things read. Every time you get a run made, the time slip printer prints out. It prints out our reaction time, our 20 foot, our 140, our mile an hour, and our final. Now you're going to notice it says 60 in mid trap, and part of that is because Portatree Timing Systems makes this unit, and that is a default. Our actual settings are whatever we calculate we wanted, and so that was 20, 140, and 150. The nice thing about this is we ran 3 runs or 4 runs here in just a matter of seconds. You could change timing, you could change pipes, you could change clutching, and run back-to-back runs and know exactly what you changed. So I'm going to stop here and we'll go on to the next segment. Okay, Gary, we're going to do a final rundown here. You see everything's set up, ready to go. Caleb is going to zoom into the console and we're going to show you how to do one more run. As I stated before, you see your numbers up here and you see that we've already made a run. We're going to reset the button to 0, reset the button to 0, reset. 4 lights are on. It means we're ready to go. We start the quad. Now you saw the minute the numbers came up, our run is done. That was about 4 seconds worth of time, and we got a ton of information about what we want to do with the unit. We tear off our time slip, and there you go. You've got everything you need to know about this quad. You can make any changes that you want and see the difference, and you'll be able to see it within tenths and thousandths of seconds. All right, I think that's the end of our little demo tape here, and I will email this to you tomorrow, and you take a look at it and tell me what you think. Thank you.